Bitcoin has seen a strong short-term correction following the CPI release. Will Bitcoin continue this downward momentum pushing lower, or are the bulls going to step back in and reverse the price? This is a video you do not want to miss. Let's jump in. Okay, MegaWhale team, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're all having an absolutely fantastic day today. In today's video, we are taking a look at Bitcoin's short-term price action, discussing exactly what is happening, what you should be expecting next, and the key levels you should be paying attention to on the short term, as well as the macro charts. We'll briefly go over the daily descending channel, the midline resistance, and of course the recent economic news and what potential influence that data could have on the upcoming interest rate decision. Before we do get into it, smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos of Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical, and the structural information. No hype, no BS, no emotion, pure raw TA. If that is the kind of content you were interested in, join over 6,000 members in our Telegram channel, the first link down below. You'll get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop of cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. And if you are interested in taking your trading to the next level, you can join us with over 600 members in our VIP channel. The VIP channel has been around for nearly 4 years, for 81% win rate with over 1,000 live trades with exact entries, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, exclusive analysis, and so much more. You'll also get access to all of our group chats, our general chat, trading chart and education chat, news, daily video help, and trade setup chat. If that is what you're interested in, go ahead and contact me in the pinned comment of the free channel by clicking my name or these links for more information. And the final thing, if you are interested in supporting the channel even more and getting 15% off all your trading fees for life, which can save you $10,000 to $100,000 up. It saved me well over 6 figures in the years I've been trading. You can sign up to BitUnix, BingX, or BitGet via my links down below in the description or in our Telegram channel to get 15% off your trading fees, including a nice sign-up bonus. Check it out, guys, and let's jump in. So taking a look at the past 24 hours of price action, we saw a pretty decent move upwards for Bitcoin, bouncing from that sturdy level of support, which was identified in our prior video at around 58 to 57,300. We saw a little bit of chop in that prior 24-hour period, but we did see a rally moving into CPI data, where we created a pretty bearish divergence over here, hence the word bearish divergence, resulting in a post CPI release correction. And again, the market was more or less anticipating a bullish result for CPI, and we did see that bullish result, and hence we rallied in anticipation of that event. And it was one of those classic buy rumor, sell when news type events. We have since seen the market correct slightly, moving into, again, this upcoming day. So Bitcoin is now around 58,600, and we'll be discussing exactly what is happening here and what you should be expecting and potential trade opportunities we'll be looking at moving forward in just a moment. Moving over to the market data, with a recent amount of volatility, we have seen volume pump up just a small amount at 5.5% at 125 billion, and a decent surge in liquidations at 36%. At a total of 123 million, 90 million coming from longs, 32 million coming from short positions. Taking a preliminary look at the data over here, we can see the inflation data came out relatively good. It wasn't significantly good. It wasn't a massive amount better than expected. The forecasts were around 0.3% for our month-on-month. We came in at consensus at around 0.2, but in fact that was slightly higher than the previous. So overall, on the macro scale, inflation was coming down, but the result wasn't as good as the prior results. We did see a little bit of turbulence, and I think that contributed to that sell-off post-CPI data. So although on a macro scale it was a good result, it really didn't show us too much on the short term. That month-on-month change was actually up a little bit in comparison to the last month. So on the short-term perspective, the market did reciprocate that as slightly more bearish. So that is why, or one of the elements to why we probably saw that short-term pullback over the last 12 hours since that CPI release. Moving over to the DXY, of course, the DXY has come down towards that uptrend. That is expected when we do generally see more bullish results for inflation. We do generally see the DXY drop to the downside. So that again indicating inflation is falling, the DXY is weakening, the dollar is weakening, and there's a greater probability we're going to see those interest rate drops. So we did see DXY come down a little bit, which is good. And with that, we have seen the probability slightly shift on the interest rate decisions. We're currently looking at around a 64% chance of a 25 basis point drop and a 36% chance of a 50 basis point drop. Moving over to the S&P 500 momentarily, we can see a pretty strong day for the S&P 500, a pretty strong week overall for the S&P 500, really bouncing from that major support at 5,300. We can see right over here a massive deviation below that prior high. However, that was a full body wick over here, resulting in that closing price managing to just scrape over that 5,300 high point, actually resulting in this level sustaining as an area of support. Really chopping up anyone below here, but since then we have seen this current weekly candle actually turn quite green, pushing up a couple $100, now at around 5,400 once again. While we sustain above these prior highs, these prior high points established, we are looking for these directional continuations up into new high points at around 6,000. It is only if we close a weekly candle below 5,300 would we then expect the high time frame trend to actually fully shift into a macro downtrend. Until then, the S&P 500 is still bullish. That is it, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into Bitcoin. We're going to be taking a look in depth the short-term price action. We're going to be going over the significance of this daily chart. We're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin dominance as it is dropping slightly back down, and we'll be taking a look at the total. Before we do get into it, a quick word from today's video sponsor, and we'll jump into the video. I'd like to introduce our partner, BitUnix. BitUnix is a global, non-KYC, no country restriction exchange, making it a perfect exchange to trade on if you're from the USA, from Canada, the Netherlands, or just prefer to trade without KYC. This exchange is a futures and spot exchange with over 200 different trading pairs and some of the lowest fees in the game. If you sign up with my link down below, you'll get access to 15% off your trading fees, as well as an exclusive reward center where you can claim up to a multitude in USDT prizes. So go ahead and sign up with my link down below for 15% off, and I'll see you in there. Okay guys, let's go ahead and get stuck into Bitcoin, and as we can see, Bitcoin is still struggling with the midline of the descending channel, and this level is a dynamic resistance. This dotted trend line, this mid level, is a dynamic resistance, as the exact price of this resistance changes based on the date, as it is a slightly downsloping diagonal resistance. As we can see now, if we count the days, we have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have a whole week of price action rejecting from this midline resistance a massive level of major significance that we are failing to break above. Now, if we take a look at the short-term price action, we'll jump into a second, we are actually managing to sustain above this weekly low, this daily low price at around 58,000. Again, if we take a look at 58,000, every single time we fail to sustain above 58,000, exhibit number 1, exhibit number 2, we see a directional continuation to our range low. So we're between a rock and a hard place, quite literally. The rock being this downtrending resistance, which we're really struggling to break above, and this hard place being that 58.3k support. We also notice once again, if we fail to sustain above here, we see that directional continuation downwards. So we know that this area is a critical area of support Bitcoin will need to sustain above, and if we fail to do so, we do pose the risk of dropping back towards that 54k region. We're discussing that in our short-term analysis when we do get up to it, but we can really see the significance of this major dotted trend line now. And if you weren't a believer of it before, by looking at this, guys, so many daily rejections from here. We know this is now a major trigger point we have to be paying very close attention to. So the bullish case scenario for Bitcoin really goes as we need to close a daily candle. We've been saying this for a very long time. We need to close a daily candle above that dotted trend line, as per what we have seen in these two prior instances, okay, to see a directional bullish continuation towards that 68, towards that 70K region. If we want to see Bitcoin break out of this rock and hard place range, this danger area, we need to see a break on the daily candle and a daily candle close above that dotted trend line to facilitate that continuation higher. Of course, if we do see that break upwards, we are then expecting the price action to follow suit of what we have seen in the past, which is a directional continuation into the range high. Now, if we fail to do that, we will do one of two things. Number one, we will continue to consolidate between the dotted trend line and the horizontal support, moving more or less sideways, or we will fail to sustain above this horizontal support at 58,000, resulting in a directional continuation toward, maybe not to touch, but toward the range low. And we'll discuss that in just a second when we move to our short-term chart. So I know we've been in this range for a while now. I know it's getting very boring, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be paying attention, because this is very critical. If we see that break upwards, we're going to see a strong directional continuation. If we see that break downwards, we're going to see an equally strong directional continuation. If we look at the percentage range of which the price could move, that's an 8% move toward the downside Bitcoin could undergo, and toward the upside, that's a 11% move. So these percentages are by no means small movements for Bitcoin. We get accustomed to large movements when we are in periods of mass volatility. But remember back to when Bitcoin was trading at 19,000, 20,000. We had weeks and weeks of price action, days and days of price action back in these ranges over here, where we had, 1 to 2% moves a day maximum, and we'd have to trade like 0.6% move scalps, 1% move scalps, and those were considered big moves. It is interesting to see now that even with the increased volatility, we have not really seen an increase in engagement in the space, as most of the time what brings engagement, as I said in the prior video, is general excitement. How exciting is the price action? And if we see volatility that is in a degree of consolidation, it's not all that exciting, and people aren't really interested to trade it, even if there's a lot of trading opportunities at hand. And that is kind of the situation I'm kind of vibing at the moment for the market. There's so many opportunities to take these positions, to take these trades, but there's not much engagement overall around the cryptocurrency market at the moment, because of how boring the price action has been in a broader sense over the last 5 months in comparison to the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or other stocks, particularly the video stock or whatever we want to be talking about. Bitcoin really has been, on the lower end of engagement. But taking a look at that price action over here, guys, for us to see that directional continuation higher, again, we need to break out of the confines of this descending channel. This descending channel at the end of the day is a consolidation pattern, meaning while we sustain within the confines, which means the upper level of resistance and lower area support, this descending channel could theoretically continue for a very long period of time. Descending channels are macro consolidations. They do not have the 5-3 rule. They could literally continue until these levels break. And if we're looking for a directional break up and down, we are looking for a daily candle close above that resistance or below that support to validate that the trend line has broken, and we will see the directional continuation. So let's jump into the short-term price action now. And I want you to remember the key levels we spoke of. I want you to remember that dotted trend line. I also want you to remember the potential impact we see on the short term or on the high time frame even if we break below this short-term support at around 58K. I want you to remember those two things. So let's move over to short-term price action. Going ahead and identifying these levels, we can see we have got the 200 SMA and midline resistance. Again, like we said, this was a dynamic resistance. So it started the week up in this region and it has been slowly declining as the week has been going. It is now sitting around 61,700. which we retested upon the CPI release, but failed to sustain above, resulting in a short-term correction. I also want you to note that the lower level of support around 58,000 is sitting around about this region. Again, it is dynamic, so it is going to move a little bit up toward the upside based on the time frame we are viewing. Again, if we're viewing it on a daily chart, that support is going to be slightly higher. If we're looking at the short-term chart, we're more or less focusing on this cluster, this prior area of resistance to act as our horizontal support. Again, if we do zoom out, we have slightly different areas of liquidity. Again, our VRPV is going to be the tool we utilize to find where those areas are, those areas of higher trading volume. And the VRPV is based on a visible range. So when we increase the visible range, the VRPV does slightly adjust because we're taking it in more data. So when we're looking at this smaller range, we don't have data from all this price action back here that attributes to where we assign these horizontal levels. So if we're looking at the macro chart, we are looking at the support region over here. If we're looking at the short-term trigger points are still going to be these regions right over here. And again, the area of which we retested. So what does that mean? It is exactly what we meant in the prior time we talked about this. Remember back in this video over here where we talked about a correction, we told you as we approach that 58k region, we are going to see a decrease in bearish volatility, and we will likely see a reversal develop within the region between 58,000 and 57.3 as we are reaching a higher time frame support and our prior area of resistance. The same goes here. So Bitcoin is now reaching an area of short time frame support on this chart as represented by this gray box. If we are able to see this area develop into a reversal, we are likely to sustain and continue back into this high point, creating somewhat of a horizontal consolidation. That is more or less what Bitcoin appears to be creating at the moment. However, like we mentioned on that daily chart, if we fail to sustain above this prior resistance and we break down from this level, Bitcoin is very likely to move towards that $54,000 support. Now, the $54,000 support is the descending channel range low. And if we lose that, we enter a high time frame downtrend, invalidating that daily bullish structure. Remember, that levels lines up exactly with 54,000 right over here. So if Bitcoin does fail to sustain above this short-term support, we will see a directional continuation to the range low. And if we see a directional continuation to range low, we increase the likelihood of an invalidation of the structure. But again, both these points, this range low of 54,000 and this 57.3k region, will act as potential reversal points for Bitcoin. So what do I mean on the short term? I would not be looking to get into Bitcoin longs over here. I'd be watching once again for the reaction at this lower area of support. If we come into this region and we show signs of bullish reversal, we could then look for swings back into these high points, back to retest that 200 SMA and that midline resistance. However, if we show signs of weakness at this level, we could then be looking for rejections or continuations downwards to 54,000. That is how I'm playing the current short-term price action. I'd go ahead and add another note. If we take a look at this short-term price action, we do have an area of resistance which is sitting now above the 200 SMA and the midline resistance. This is going to be our prior area of support for the prior consolidation that developed above 63, which took us into that $70,000 region. This was about, we're looking at about a 15-day long horizontal support level, which will now act as a level of resistance. So not only do we need to break above the midline, we will need to break above 64,000 now to see that continuation higher, which means the bullish scenario could result in a wick into this range and then a correction back down. That is a real possibility. So if we are looking for longs, we are ideally looking for longs in this lower region. Not so much upon the break of this region unless we are able to sustain a daily candle close. Then we have our horizontal resistance. We are looking in this region for areas of weakness, for range high rejections and continuations downwards if that level is reached. That is it, guys. Let's jump into the short term on Bitcoin dominance. It is seeing a rejection from the critical range, a very good sign for Bitcoin dominance, a good sign for altcoins overall. We definitely want to see that continue lower if altcoins want to have a chance of entering a stronger phase. Once more, we will not enter our altcoin season unless Bitcoin dominance significantly drops. We're watching that uptrending support line. Total cruising market cap very much mimicking Bitcoin right now. We are watching for that break over that dotted trend line. And you can see just how exactly this chart is really mimicking that Bitcoin daily chart, rejecting from those midlines, rejecting from that level of resistance, which we will need to break above to see the continuation. If Bitcoin does, we are very likely to follow suit for the total. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a fantastic day. We'll jump into it tomorrow again. We'll see you then.